But my name is Travis West. I'm a product marketing associate for Primaloft. I travel around to different brands, and today I get to travel around to some students who are going to be the next generation of product designers, interior designers, and help influence you on what Primaloft really means. A lot of people, when they think of Primaloft, this is what you see. Light, fluffy stuff. I'm going to hand out a couple of these just for you guys to pass around. And what I want you to do is when you get it, you'll see that it's fluffy. These are a little deteriorated, but I want you to just put it on your hand and let it sit there and let me know when you feel the warmth values just increasing. And a lot of the times, you know, whether it's in cold batting or outdoor performance wear, you're out in the cold and you want to be warm. That is what we do. So for a lot of you students who are designing outdoor products, Primaloft may be in your wheelhouse. And believe it or not, I actually met a student from this program yesterday while I was at a customer meeting at Backcountry. So I hope to see many of you in the future. And this is just going to be the start of inspiring you of what Primaloft really means and how we can encourage you to push boundaries in design, in sourcing, and in sustainability. So my presentation is going to be very active. Feel free to ask questions as they come up. And we're going to have some interesting videos, some Q&A, some product demonstrations, and just kind of keep this live. This is a very unique classroom. I like this more than seminar settings, so comfort is my goal. So, let me just make sure this works. 30-minute interactive, 10 minutes follow-up Q&A. There will be a little, pay attention. There's going to be some handouts at the end for people who can answer the very simple quiz questions that I have. Then we're going to do some Q&A, and really, I want to know what the class is thinking and what you believe in our products and kind of our sustainability mission. So who am I? I'm from upstate New York. Came all the way down here literally to visit you guys and to visit some of our local brands in Salt Lake where we have a local rep here. Now, what do I do every day? I work in between our innovation department and the lab, and they're in there mixing fibers, creating new awesome insulations that are pushing the boundaries of polyester and synthetic. And I basically talk to them, and I am a translator to our marketing team to make this stuff really cool and so that they can put together an awesome presentation to help support our sales collateral. I also order a bunch of header cards and sampling that we send out to our prospective customers. What is my prior experience? Has nothing to do with textiles. You guys probably know more than I do at this point. I worked in finance and marketing, and not as much on the textile front. I got to go to a week-long crash course at NC State University, and you all probably had more training in the textile world than I have, but that doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about for the most part. My hobbies, I love being outside, skiing, hiking. I have a pet dog, he's the greatest, he's a little puggle, very interesting guy. And what do I love about my job is really interacting with the next generation and encouraging them to be their best and think differently than what we're normally taught. At Primaloft, we don't take no for an answer. We find a way to make it a yes. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do today. So why am I here? To introduce you to our company, show you and demonstrate the value of our great products, and inspire you to challenge the status quo. Now I'm going to introduce you quickly to Primaloft. We've got some really great videos, so this one usually gives me the children. I hope it will for you. Full screen if you can. If this works, I'm going to be really proud. Yes. Hang on, I think I got to get sound first. Whoops. This is what happens when you mute, when you warm up.
Everyone wants a puppy.
Puppy for you. Oh.
My name broke.
Broke? Hopefully it won't blow our eardrums out.
I don't screw it. Having my on the blade. Yeah.
Everybody see all right? Look at that. that's Primaloft. Okay, I'm done. Just kidding. As you can see from that video, that should give you a great example of what we really do. We push the boundaries. We took a challenge from the Army. If anybody's used down when it gets wet, good luck. Basically what makes Primaloft great is we can shed that moisture and be able to keep you warm in those conditions. It goes through from outdoor sports and athleisure even into your home and your pillows and comforters. So we really do spread a very wide breadth of technology and capabilities and comfort solutions to individuals. So what makes our story great is we've been overcoming challenges since 1983, introduced the technology to everyday consumers like you and me in the early 90s. And has anybody heard of PCR? Anybody out there know what PCR is? Boom, first prize winner. So participation is encouraged, folks. Post-consumer recycled fibers. Anybody see one of these? You ever seen one? Water bottle? Well, we can make this out of this. And we'll get there shortly, but that's something we introduced in 1997 and now consists of 75% of our global sales made from these. I'll show you how that's done in a few minutes, but global company based out of Latham, New York, a town that probably none of you have ever heard of. It's about 3 hours north of New York City. We have offices in Munich, Germany, and Xiamen, China, which is pretty close to Taiwan. We're not a very large company, but we have a big footprint. And as you can see, we're in a lot of brands I'll show you shortly, but this was one of our first jackets. Isn't that beautiful? This is 90s style all the way. But that's really what pioneered us into the consumer market, was this large, baffle, really warm, down aesthetic looking jacket that was able to be a little bit lighter, better performing when wet. So where do you see Primaloft? Is anybody here wearing Primaloft? No? Are you sure? All right, we'll find out. So you're going to see us in everywhere. From outerwear to military to hunting to home furnishing, boots, gloves, fashion, sleeping bags. I was at a sleeping bag meeting yesterday. Even workwear, companies like Carhartt and Sika and Sims in the outdoor industry. So you're going to see us everywhere. Has anybody seen these jackets? I know you have. I wore one today. So when you come to Utah from upstate New York, it's a little bit colder here, to be honest, at the elevation. So you throw one of these bad boys on, and you know what? You feel a lot more comfortable in the end. I actually purchased this jacket. I had no idea it was made by Primaloft. I wore it to my interview, and my interviewer said, "Did you know you're wearing Primaloft?" I said, "No, I'm wearing North Face." Yeah, you're supposed to laugh, yes. But at the end of the day, there's this really small tag on here that says Primaloft, and she was right, but I still got the job, so it worked out anyway. But realistically, when you think of who actually keeps you warm, you think this piece of fabric is keeping you warm. Probably not. It's the stuff in between that's retaining your heat. We're going to get into that shortly. But this type of style, I mean, these things are everywhere, from campus to the mountains. Oops. A few of your local brands. Anyone ever heard of Black Diamond?
Yeah. Never.
How about Coat Epoxy? This is a Browning jacket and a Kuhl jacket. So we are in all of these brands. They are local Salt Lake City, Utah area brands. I was fortunate to go to a few of them yesterday as part of my travels. And has anybody heard of any of these? Over 700 globally. We are the premium position synthetic down alternative in the world. Everybody from Arc'teryx, Patagonia, Athleta, even in the athleisure market. Technically my segment is outdoor sports and athleisure. Athleisure is really growing as people just want those comfort solutions in their everyday life. So whether you're walking to class or flying on an airplane, you could be exposed to Primaloft. So this is just a few of our 700 plus, I think it's actually closer to 1,000 global brands. Some are huge, some are tiny. They range from the US, Europe, China, even Australia. So we have a large global footprint that we provide products to. So, as you can see with these little mini cards, and if you haven't gotten one, ask your neighbor to be friendly and pass it to you. there's great properties that make this a good down alternative. The batting structure, this very tightly woven web structure of microfibers, more or less, are able to keep that warmth retained in small pockets. Right here, I'll pass these around. This is water. This is Primaloft insulation. This is an empty vessel. 2.5 weeks later, it will still be like this. Not really a drop will ever go through for quite some time. And then when it is wet, you grab it, you shake it, it's dry. So if anyone happens to see a drop through there, let me know. Then we have a bad product. Just kidding. This is the best stuff on the planet. And I had one of these for 2 weeks that I let sit, and it finally had a couple drops go through. I'm going to pass this. You guys feel free to check those out, move them around. Shake it up, whatever you need to do. You got drops, you shook it. Some of this insulation is probably, it's not the stuff that we're getting to brands. It's probably been here for a little bit. May have ripped it. That's okay. This is the point of the exercise. You got to break our stuff in order to trust it. There's actually a demonstration where I could take a full cooler, I could take a piece of this, I could reach all the way down to the cooler, grab my favorite beverage, and pull it up, and my hand will be dry. Without forcing the water through with a lot of compression. Yes. For the most part, it will hold up under standard conditions. So the fiber size is what makes this great. It's really soft. As a lot of you guys have seen this being handed around. I mean, I would like to sleep on this. And we're not just taking standardized for an answer. Initially, we made all this product out of polyester. Does anybody know where polyester comes from?
Oil.
Who said that? Nailed it. Anybody know that oil is obviously the most polluting? You get another notebook because it looks like you like to use them. Oil is the most polluting industry in the world. Guess what's second? Apparel, yes. Not a lot of people really think that, and I tell a lot of my friends that polyester came from crude oil. And they're like, what? How do you get that out of crude oil? Long story short, bunch of processes you can make string from the fibers in there. I won't go too into it. Being in traditional textile class, you can do that in your science classes. So we maintain this performance under this echelon of being relentlessly responsible. What does that mean? That means we're pushing the boundaries of sustainability without sacrificing our performance. So taking traditional polyester, making it out of water bottles, extruding, you basically grind these things down into chips. You can melt and extrude them just like you would with polyester. We did this without sacrificing performance, so I could take a piece of this made from polyester, same piece made from a water bottle. They're going to have the same thermal properties, as well as the same softness and touch. That was awesome. We introduced this in 1997, and no one touched it till 2009. Barely, we had to sneak it in, because we were like, this is this is more sustainable for us. People were like, I don't know about that. Now you go to the stores, a lot of our big brands, they're pushing recycled materials, they're pushing polyester, whether it's in the wovens on the outer shell fabrics, or it's the insulation inside, or your Sherpa sweaters. Patagonia dedicated, I believe, their entire product line to being made from post-consumer recycled materials. So that better sweater that everyone sees, that was the best-selling product in the world for textiles last year. And now they're making it out of recycled fibers. So that's a sentiment to all of you, the future of designers, product developers, and textile professionals. That's a thought process that you have to keep in mind, is how can we keep this sustainability going? So this relentlessly responsible, overarching, this is what we do at work every day. Started with PCR, post-consumer recycled content. We've actually even pushed the boundaries to allow a special sauce to be on the insulation that allows it to biodegrade in normal conditions, whether it's in the sea or the land, and it turns into a little hummus, and we've actually grown a soybean out of it. So we could take literally something like this, takes, 200 days or so, and it'll turn into this little dirt-looking stuff, and you can put a seed in it, and it will actually grow life. Some states don't believe in that. Our friends over on the West Coast choose not to, but the rest of the world does. Biodegradable polyester is a real thing. We've proven it, we've done it, and it's great. Circularity. Circularity is what happens when you manufacture a textile, it gets into your hands. How can you keep that loop going? You're done with it. You want to get rid of it. How can you put it into a waste container that avoids the landfill and instead goes to a recycling factory to where we can yield 95% of that jacket into another product without having the waste, not throwing it in a dumpster. That's called circularity. And then carbon is the boundary that we're pushing next. How can we continue to make our products with great performance while reducing our carbon footprint? That's kind of the next wave of textiles, and that's something I challenge all of you to look into. So we got another one on another great video. I have to show these because we put a lot of effort into them, and I hope they get you excited. But it tells, yeah, great sounds. Whoops. Except for when the person operating doesn't know how. So this is what I think about when I go to work every day. How can we continue to be the best while not damaging our planet and using a lot of the stuff that is already available? I have this weird thing where I go on Google Maps and I just love exploring geography. I went to the northern coast of Siberia and just dropped a little guy, and you can look around and I see all this rubbish on the coast, and all of a sudden I turn around and I see a pile of plastic bottles. There is not a human within probably 150 miles, but there are plastic bottles there. We have plenty of them. And if you think about in the past 5 years, Primaloft has recycled or used in polyester 257 million. That is 1/7 the distance to the moon and 1 1/3 times around the globe. Lining these up around the globe. That is a long way. That is like 24,000 miles of these. So when you think about, these are all already used. So we have barely made a dent in the consumption of the everyday American. I still use one for demonstration purposes. I will recycle it to make sure we can keep making polyester. But I choose to use an algae. And that's just, thinking about the sustainability element and what you're actually leaving behind and what your footprint really is. So this is, 32,000 miles of water bottles.
When you were saying earlier about the biodegradable plastic, is that something that you're applying to these water bottles now as well? Like the fibers that you're making from the water bottle?
Yes, we'll get there in the next chapter, but yes, it is right along those lines.
And how much of the synthetic down basically is produced from an average water bottle? Like how much can you
Average water bottle will make, I want to say like 300 yards of string. Like when you think about how, has anybody ever seen a yarn cone? The big cones. Do anybody know how long those are? Try 9,000. You see a full-size yarn cone. Those are actually weighed and sold in metrics of 9,000 meters. And that's polyester. So when you think about that in a recycle platform, that's probably a couple thousand water bottles. But when you take the content from this and you make it a very fine string, you can make it go a long ways. So this is something that actually is a part of my job. I keep track of how many water bottles we use based on our sales. And I can say right now about 79% of our product portfolio contains products that are more than 50% post-consumer recycled content. A lot of them now are pushing 100. That is our goal, is to convert our entire product portfolio to recycled. Bio. Another quick, great video. This better be the one. It's the same one. Who did this? Let me, I'm going to jump out and search it. You guys are more than welcome to check out our YouTube page. This is called Thinking on Your Feet. Voila. Same theme. Another nice brief promo video. A lot of you may have seen that 80.3 biodegradation. That was in about 238 days. We continue the testing. Basically, it's constantly going. We achieved 93.7% biodegradation, and the left. How'd that happen?
This,
Oh,
You're
it's
talking
next
about
week.
high performance insulation. You're talking about fiber size.
Also,
Fiber size.
she was really great. If you're interested in learning more about our fiber size, we've got a bunch of different videos here on our YouTube channel. You know, not the most up-to-date content, but we do have a lot of instructional guidelines on there. Let's pull this back up. So we're constantly maintaining that biodegradation. What's left over is basically like fatty acids that are actually can return to the earth without having any damage. So we use a special serum inoculum that we can attach to this insulation during the curing phase that allows it to achieve this biodegradability. And this is in a water environment, so like salt water. We actually have to use water from both the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean and like mix them together, and it sits in there for a while. And then also in a landfill soil environment. So this is something that we continue to push the boundaries of. Hopefully we're going to be seeing it in retail in a couple of years.
Do you know what causes it to activate so that the jacket you're not wearing doesn't biodegrade over time as you're wearing it? What do you know?
That is basically the shell fabric. We don't control that, but when the shell fabric and the entire garment enters a landfill situation, our serum, proprietary, will actually release into the polyester fibers. So no, your jacket is not going to fall apart on you. When it starts grinding around in a materials environment and starts rubbing against each other, it actually creates some type of friction, which will allow it to achieve that. But no, your jacket will not melt off your shoulders. That is a great question. So kind of what's next? You know, we did PCR, we did bio. We're trying to do the circular apparel ecosystem. Who here has a garbage can that they can put their textiles in and know that they're going to a great place? No, it's not really in the US yet. Places like Germany actually now offer another can that you can put your clothing into, so it goes into a circular system and comes back. That is, I think, really cool. It's just the infrastructure is not set up here in the States. That's something we're trying to push for, but we can't do everything. But that's, hey, if anyone is very entrepreneurial, good idea. And then carbon reduction. So how can we make insulation without pumping out coal and electricity? And a lot of the times insulation needs to be heat bonded. Flames, like what do you get flames? You have to power that by something. So how can we continue to push the boundaries while reducing our carbon footprint? You're going to start seeing that a lot now at textile shows, and in the industry is the carbon reduction programs. So make, use, recycle. As you can see, there's this linear take, make, dispose, put it in a landfill. That's basically how things have operated for a long time. Circular economy is keep the circle going. Can we take a majority of that product, put it back into manufacturing, and make another one? It's how we do recycled water bottles in a lot of cases. A lot of your brown paper bags are all made from recycled content. So it's coming up everywhere. I even noticed in the great state of Utah, you don't really get a plastic straw anymore. Single-use plastic straws. I was at a few restaurants yesterday. I'm like, there's no straws here. This is great. So just as society and economies are beginning to adjust to this, this is a great wave. It's no longer about just pumping and dumping. This is the next generation. So as you're developing products, as you're pushing the boundaries of your innovations, think about this, because this is the next step. I was at a customer meeting yesterday and they said they want to make a 100% recycled glove. Who thought of that? But that is the industry standard today. And that's where the direction we're headed. And that's what, you know, brands are aspiring to, because consumers care now. You know, we care about, we've seen Greta Thunberg in Washington yelling at our senators, telling them to be better. You know, this is the next wave, and this is where you guys have the power to lead that change. We also are certifiably sustainable. We use Okotex. Our factories are all Blue Sign approved. Has anybody heard of Blue Sign? Can you tell me what Blue Sign means a little bit?
It's sort of a closed containing system that's focused on reducing carbon output and water usage, and trying to cut down on all the big things that textiles cause.
Yes, we're getting closer.
So they focus on like good work environments as well.
That is another one. I'll let you guys split that one. But yeah, that is also, our factories are basically audited. You know, there's no forced labor, child labor. There's better working environments. There's a level of, I guess, sustainability throughout the brand, to whether or not, or throughout the factory, we're not just burning coal. They have better practices, and this is something that we enforce in our garment factories.
Is that something you guys renew on a yearly basis, or is it over time? I know that it's something you have to renew, but how often is it that you're renewing that? Do you know?
Sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 3 years, but the max is usually 3.
3, okay.
So it's something that if your factory is up to snuff, they'll come in every 3 years, but if you do new factories, they'll do it about every year. Okotex is another one that's really just for your ingredients. You know, they're saying that yes, this is 100% recycled PCR content. You know, not just we're faking it and we're marketing it. So we actually have in the industry, we have to pay for these as a brand for these people to go out and certify and justify the things that we do. Kind of like IDFL, like you guys had a session with them. They certify that it's really down. So that is kind of our next step. So I'm going to show you guys some products. I know you really trashed my other insulations, so be a little easier on this stuff. Just kidding. But kind of back to this, the properties is, it makes it really compressible. I had this 400 GSM large sleeping bag insulation that I can crush up and then go like this, and it goes poof, and it comes back to life. So when you think about a sleeping bag and you roll it up really tight and you shove it in your bag, imagine if it like compressed and didn't come back out into a sleeping bag. That would not be very comfortable. You would not like that, trust me. But when it regains its loft, or when you jack it, you fold it up and you stuff it in your backpack for the day. Imagine if it came out and it was just crushed. You know, you want that regain. So that allows us to, you know, some of our fiber properties allow for that rebound. Fast drying. Cotton. Use a cotton towel to pick up a spill, right? Try to use a microfiber towel or a polyester towel. You will literally just push water. It does not like water. So when we think about that in an insulation, this stuff gets soaking wet, you shake it out and it's dry, because it doesn't retain that water. Very breathable. And then these little pockets, I mean, some of you have these samples, you're welcome to pull these apart a little bit, but you'll see this webbing structure. What does that do? It retains those warmth molecules that your body is releasing. You know, you're active, you're getting out there, you're working. Your warmth molecules stay in here and it creates a nice thermal barrier. So that's kind of another interesting property of our fibers that allow such great performance.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With the breathability,
Yep.
so water can't really get through it. So when you're sweating, how do you keep from your body getting soaked?
That is a challenge. If anybody's heard of Gore, that is their biggest challenge, is how to not let water in and how to not let water out. But basically when you think about it, the heat molecule is much smaller than a water or a sweat molecule. That is the challenge that we have to work with every day. These are down-proof fabrics, so you're not going to get the most breathability out of the fabric, but air goes right through. So that is something that we work with. That's a good question to make sure that you're not soaking this stuff. But that's where you need to use higher CFM fabrics that will allow your body to release that sweat and transfer it out of the garment. But that's a good question. That's our challenge. You wear one of these, you can start getting hot and sweaty. You're going to wish you had arm tips. So that is a very good point. So the insulation will allow it through. It just depends on the openness of your fabric. Great question. So, Primaloft Gold Insulation. You've got all these fancy names, but this is the one that I handed out. This is kind of our premium. You're going to see this in a lot of applications. I'll throw out a header card. This one's made from 55% post-consumer recycled content. We're now upping that to 90, and it's really kind of pushing our portfolio. Feel free to pass it around. It's got a nice hand feel because the fiber sizes are really small. When you think about hand feel, it's small fibers. There's not a lot of loose ends on there to grab the tips of your fingers. So that's one of our nice warm ones. If anybody's ever seen one of these, that's where it ends up. So that fiber size is a really important note. When we think of, you guys hear of denier?
Yeah.
Good. We're in a textiles class. So the higher the denier, could be a little more coarse. You know, you think of a Carhartt jacket. Anybody ever wear a Carhartt jacket? It's got that really tough exterior fabric, not something you're going to want to sleep on, but it's going to keep you from abrasing the fabric and pilling it. We use microfibers because we're covered up by that really tough fabric and allows the softness and touch. I wish I had one of the nano puffs, but I can only afford a North Face at the time. And this one actually uses a thermal ball technology. Anybody hear the thermal ball? Yes, so this is small channels, little tiny balls of insulation. It is a nice cozy jacket. Throw it on when I got out of the car. I was like, welcome to Utah, and zipped up. Another product, needled insulation. Needled insulation is they take your standard batting and they literally punch it with a bunch of needles. And it condenses all of the fibers into a more structured format while still keeping this very, very soft.
More rigid?
A little more rigid, a little less drape, but still the same properties, and it's actually like thicker, so you're going to get a little bit better warmth values. It's going to be more of a thermal barrier versus a thick insulator.
What about strength?
Pretty good. So, have you ever seen one of these? Big needled application right there, either in a 200 GSM or a 400 GSM. We put these into snow boots, ski boots, alpine trekking boots. This is some very warm stuff. A lot of applications, but a lot of the times it'll go into footwear or gloves. We'll make one that's got a little more resin on it, a little more sticky, won't migrate. Gives you some grip control on there, but when you think about it, you put on a pair of gloves and you go like this a zillion times. You're going to want to make sure that your fibers aren't separating from your pinch points right here. So that's where an insulation like this that's needled, more compressible, will maintain that body rigidity through multiple applications. Timberland boot's a big one, and Black Diamond gloves. Anybody's ever used them? They're really good. They are kind of our popular in that area. So footwear and gloves, the gold one, best of the best. Needled, we're getting a lot more warmth value. And then I want to show you what's the next one. Insulation batting. Primaloft silver. So this one, here are the terms gold, silver, and black. It's good, better, best. Gold is the best. Silver, black is kind of the essentials. It's really just a fiber mix. You know, that denier of fiber, we're using the smaller microfiber for the gold and a little bit larger denier for the black. It's a better price value for some people, some brands, so we have to meet them in the middle. This one's got a scrim on it. Anybody hear of scrim? Yeah.
Feeder industry.
Yeah. And you want to keep your insulation from migrating. So this one's made out of 100% post-consumer recycled content. I'll let you lift up the scrim. You'll still feel it's soft, but it's not as soft. And that's something we continue to push with the quality of our fibers and making sure that this PCR, we literally made it from water bottles. You know, we're getting pretty darn good. But then we'll have a little more sensitivity. It won't have the same thermal features, but it is right down the lines. A lot of bad companies, Big Agnes, I was at a company called Climate yesterday, right down in Kaysville. They use a lot of this insulation, and because it's got great warmth. This is a bio version of that. Same 100% PCR content, has the Bio Inoculum, and allows you to achieve a more sustainable position. This was actually made out of a nicer cardboard with soy-based ink, so we pay a little bit more for these. You know, sustainability isn't everything that we do. I sent a large box of stuff out here. It probably wasn't the most sustainable because I just took some DHL and wrapped it up with tape. But any of our consumers now, I've transitioned how we send out samples to be in 100% post-consumer recycled boxes, cardboard. So when we're trying to be really sustainable and we send you this really shiny, glossy package with all of our stuff in it, that's not really the best message. So it's really looking at sustainability in every aspect of your business. I was in a meeting on Monday over the phone where we're talking about how much light we use at the office and how we control our heat and what our carbon offset and how much electricity we use in our office. So it's not just the products, it trickles all the way down to the people. We have bamboo utensils and plates. I don't use plastic plates at work. We literally have a kitchen. I make my lunch, I clean up my plate, and I put it in the dryer, you know, on the drying rack. So thinking about that in your daily use, I mean, how many food containers do you see every day that are just pure plastic? You know, thinking about like, hey, can I buy a thing of Tupperware and like use that a couple times? Help minimize my carbon footprint? And that's what I've been so inspired to do in my daily life by working at Primaloft, and I'm hoping that my messaging will intrigue you a little bit to kind of think about your daily life and operations and inspire others to be more sustainable in their day-to-day activities. So the next one, I'm going to get into some really neat stuff. Aerogel. A couple people, you know, getting all excited out there. Aerogel. Anybody know what aerogel is made out of?
It's basically like silica jello that they take all the liquid out of, and it's just that microstructure of the silica left.
Perfect. You need a notebook because you don't have one. I didn't bring pens, but I'm sure you have one of those. Yeah, silica is literally like sand. If you've ever buried yourself in sand, you'll actually find you're pretty well thermoregulated. You can literally bury everything up to your head in sand, and whether it's a 90-degree day or 40 degrees, like you're feeling pretty good under there. So we take little tiny sand particles and we put them sometimes into that batted insulation. We call it cross-core. Gives us like superior thermal performance. But we also put them in foot pads. So the next slide I'll show you a few applications of where aerogel can go into your boot. It can go into your trekking ski. Here a little bit. If I took this and put it on an iron, have you ever burned themselves on an iron? It hurts. I could put this on an iron and press down, and I wouldn't feel anything. That is the property of this aerogel. This is a thermal barrier. The aluminum's got like a 850-degree melt, so this is, I mean, whatever aluminum will melt, but the aerogel actually will not. So I can either put this on dry ice, or I can put it on an iron, and I will stay just as comfortable. So while we may think, awesome, let's put in some boots, and it will stay super warm as we're climbing the Alps, we've also had opportunities to put this in soccer cleats, to where the World Cup coming up in a couple of years is going to be in Dubai, or in Saudi Arabia area. And it's going to be 120 degrees on that field. And you're running around on rubber with some, what is that fake grass called? Whatever it's called. Turf. Your feet's going to get pretty hot. So imagine if you had one of these as protecting you from that magma rubber that you're running on. and your feet sit at a nice 72 degrees. Wouldn't that be nice? So thinking about how we can apply this to different form factors, and we even have it in a footsole. I wouldn't necessarily use this one. It's not really, designed for it, but as a sample, I could put this in my shoe and walk around and feel a little bit more comfortable. This is actually what Aerogel looks like. Don't open this, it will literally go. So it is literally a formed sand with some polyester insulation kind of mixed in there. I can pass these around as well. Just a couple of the footbeds. But it allows you to achieve maximum thermal performance. Anyone making gloves? Interested in making gloves? Interested? So we've got gloves. A little finger. You can put this in your gloves. So think about your trekking, your ice climbing, that I've learned so much about these crazy activities that people do, like climbing up glaciers. Wild. And you're in it's like 0 degrees and you're climbing up this glacier because you're just one of those people. You're gonna want like a really warm glove that if you're grabbing ice all day, your fingers make it to the top with you. That's a very important consideration because you're climbing. So when you think about, I'll just pass out the palm pad, another version of this, but it's something that we can apply in multiple form factors that allow you to achieve significant warmth. So these are our Arctic climbers.
So one of the things about Aerogel that I've heard is that it's actually very brittle in its original form. How do you guys address that?
You encapsulate it.
Okay. So just like
this.
It doesn't run away.
Yep.
Basically.
So if it's sealed inside in this type of container, if I open this, like I said, it'll literally go like sand. So yes, it's very brittle. That is something that we continue to push the boundaries of. We're trying to influence Aerogel into fabrics. So imagine you could wear your sweater, but it's got silicone in it, and you just had to wear your sweater. That was it. You'd be on a snowstorm and you're fine. That's like the whole next step that we're trying to push. We put this into insulation, allows you to get this belay parka that you can stand at the base and watch your buddy climb up, and you're literally standing there for 2.5 hours. You're gonna want something that's like super warm, not just kind of warm. So we'll actually sprinkle it into the insulation, and that's what we call our cross cord, just kind of the mixing of two technologies that lead to better performance. So, anybody think Primaloft's a lot cooler now than when you started?
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's my only goal. Not only our products are game-changing, but it's the way that we think about how we make them. That whole relentlessly responsible, the whole sustainability push. That's what we're into. Couple performance fabrics. We think of insulation. Great. What happens in the summer? How do you keep your business going if you're only selling cold weather gear? Well, you make warmer weather gear. Couple of examples of where our fabrics will fall. Some colder weather applications, but like a buff balaclava. Or like those really lightweight, sun protective, buff and bula applications that you can use, really nice fibers. We're into that as well. So we've got a few different series of I just figured I'd bring a couple for you guys to see. We've also donated a bunch, so I'll get into that a little bit later, but we've got some stuff for you guys to play with. But if you think about it, we call this our touch series. Term next to skin. Something you wear. Close. This is my next to skin. This is cotton, but could be nice and soft like a fleece. This is a 200 GSM, grams per square meter. This one is 100% polyester. We are moving our fabrics line towards being 100% post-consumer recycled. It's difficult. If you think of insulation, this is protected. Think about a fleece. You're gonna wear and tear and pull that baby apart, and we wanna make sure that we have the best stuff and not sacrifice our performance. So PCR is where we're headed, but this is kind of our touch series, closer to skin. This will be your liner fabric, your fleece base. Yeah, it's really nice. That's kind of our next.
Look like 1 minute.
1 minute, holy
Yeah.
smokes. Here's some more, great stuff. And then we have Next, which is a cross between insulation and fabric. So we actually lace some insulation in there. And then these are more of a stretch. This one's made of recycled polyester as well. I'll send a couple out this way. Wow, we flew through that. Great job, everyone. Thank you again for kind of hanging in there with me. We did donate some materials, which you'll hear more about, to our design studio. We're working on a partnership to be able to provide you guys some sourcing so that you can actually fill out those tech packs and get the right materials, hopefully work with Primaloft, and keep sustainability top of mind. If you want to stay connected, grab us down west, Primaloft, ask me any questions. Check out our Instagram. It's updated every once in a while on our YouTube video. Feel free to take a picture. But we're going to work towards, Chase is really great and kind of tracking me down. Really, you should be thanking him. And Amber's been super supportive along the way. So our goal is to maintain a relationship with the university as well as the students and be able to give you guys the best tools to make the best products. So thank you again for giving me your attention in your class. And I hope to see you guys at some customer meetings in the future. Thank you.